F123 gameplay is here then. Big shout out to EA for sending me a preview copy of the game. And today we're going to have my very first laps on the game, my very first impressions, and then we're going to have a hot lap on all 7 of the tracks that they've sent in this preview build. Let's get into it. Okay, here we go. About to go on track for F123 for the very first time. I've not played this game at all before, not anywhere, not in private, not in a beta somewhere. This is my first go. Now, I've got everything default for this first go. Default setup, default camera angles, default everything. The only thing I've slightly tweaked is I've just turned the Force 2 back onto the same settings I want in F122 to hopefully get a better feel for it. Now, we are running Silverstone here, which has been updated for F1 2023, or F123 I should say. And of course the handling is the main difference. So let's get a feel for things then. Turn 1 used to be easy flat. Yeah, okay, still easy flat. In fact, even easier flat I'd say than last year's game, felt like. Brake at the same point. Yeah, got to stop well enough. Okay, definitely more traction. Definitely more traction. The rumours were not false. Definitely, oh yeah. Full throttle there in 3rd gear just about. Kind of a bit bumpier interestingly. A little bit bumpier maybe. Not too sure on that one. Yeah, I mean, Silverstone's obviously changed, so we'll ignore the track changes for now. We'll get into those a little bit later on, but for now, let's just get a feel for exactly how this car feels. Now, at the moment, I'm feeling a bit more understeer than last year's game, but as I said, I am running a default setup, so it's not, it's not going to feel quite as alive as last year's game did with all the sweaty setup. The reason I'm not running a setup is because, obviously, this is my first try. Oh my god, there's so much grip through there. That might be flat. But yeah, I don't want to run a setup that worked on last year's game, so might not work on this year's game. So I prefer to run a setup that they've actually provided. My name there hovering around the screen, very annoying. Okay, so what I'm feeling straight away, more downforce and more traction. Now in theory that means the lap time is going to be quicker, but the lap time shouldn't be quicker. So we will see, and the braking points don't seem really shorter, so I suspect that means we're maybe slower in the slow speed corners. Let's fill it through here. Okay, a little bit deep in there. Yeah, I feel like we're a touch slower maybe in the slow speed turns. Possibly. Not 100%. Okay, that's my first lap. 29.9 for the first lap, just into the 20s. So turn 1, easy flat. Definitely more downforce. No doubt about that. A little bit deep. You can see a few stutters on my screen right now, but don't worry about those. It is still an early access build, don't forget. So, well, it's getting more and more stutty. Apparently there's some issues with Fanatec equipment at the moment with the stuttering. DRS buttons has the same. UI's obviously all changed, but I'm going to ignore that for now. That's all detailed stuff. I'm just trying to concentrate on the handling for now. Okay, well, the stuttering is getting worse. Unfortunately, I think we need to restart and try again because the stuttering is going to affect my feel for the game. Here we go. We'll try that again then. As I said, that is a bit of an own issue with this build, so we'll ignore that for now. That should hopefully be resolved for game launch. Now, as I said, it feels like it should be faster, but it feels just grippy all around. Definitely more traction. I'm just going to try and figure out, it must be slower somewhere. I want to try and take, is it Cops flat out? We know turn 1's easy flat. Easy flat this year's game. It wasn't easy flat in last year's game. Is Cops here going to be completely flat out? We're going to try it. 8th gear, absolutely flat. Oh yeah, easy. That's ridiculous. Last year's game, there was no chance of that. Okay, you could take it flat with a decent setup. Standard setup, there was absolutely no chance. So, more downforce, less mechanical grip it seems. Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting dynamic actually. Whereas previously you were sort of able to carry a lot of speed everywhere. Now as the speed beats off like in here, you really start to struggle for grip. Oh god, understeered A. See, I mean understeered wide. Again, we are on a default setup. It's important to note that, so I'm sure we'll be able to find some sort of rotation. Try and really be aggressive with the power. Wow. Full throttle there, about halfway through 3rd gear. Massive amounts more traction. You can definitely push it a bit harder. It is more difficult for the slower speed stuff, but as I said, once we've got a better setup, I'm sure things will improve slightly. Oh, way too deep, but wow. Brief went full throttle in 2nd gear there. I feel like that might be too easy on traction maybe. Let's slow down here and give it a little test. Okay, we did get wheel spin in, how about 3rd? Floor it. No wheel spin at all in 3rd. Okay, slight wheel spin there because I turned. I'll show you through here, look. So just a little bit of angle here. Full throttle, instant spin. Other than that, if it was largely similar to last year's game, it's certainly an evolution, not a revolution. I mean, look, I'm able to drift. It's not like they've changed everything massively. I'm able to drift, catch slides, that sort of thing. I mean, you certainly can drift. Of course, that would overheat the tyres if we were in a session that had overheating tyres. We'll try the off-track surfaces. Ooh, a bit more smoke from the gravel. I feel like that's going to be probably updated for launch. It looked a little bit janky, didn't it? I like it. I'm definitely interested to see once we get some esports setups on the go. Okay, DRS open now, yes. Whoa, wait, we'll slide with DRS open. Oh, Super hard to hold on to, but I'm about to say, but I'm managing it. I'm not anymore. R.I.P. R.I.P. As if we're full throttle in third. That's the big news, isn't it? Bam. Bit of spin there as the tyres were a little bit dirty, but that's fine. Full throttle in third. You showed to go full throttle in fourth on last year's game. That is such a ridiculously big difference. Okay, here we go then. We are going to have a hot lap on all 7 of the tracks that I've got in the F123 preview build. We're not going to go into massive detail in this video. It's going to be more about the gameplay in this video because I have got a handling deep dive video coming out on the main channel. Link to that will be down in the description. And everything here is completely standard. The setup is default. The camera settings are default. Absolutely everything is exactly as the game, I guess, intends. The only thing, of course, is that throttle and brake overlay you've got at the bottom there, the little graph that shows you my throttle and brake traces. That, of course, is an on-screen display. That's an overlay by Race Labs, just so you can get an idea of what I'm doing with the pedals. But yeah, coming through the first sector of bar radar here, and pretty much everything I said really during the first impressions are definitely borne out in this. There definitely is more traction. Look at my throttle usage there, full throttle in third gear without too many issues. In F122, you were struggling to go full throttle in fourth gear, so a massive difference there. And also the gear ratios, well, I think the gear ratios are a little bit shorter. Certainly 8th gear is a little bit shorter. You may notice that the sound is a little bit, well, it sounds a little bit too revvy, doesn't it? It sounds a little bit off. I think the main difference for that is because they just haven't, it's not a final game. We need to point that out. It isn't the final game. So I think they'll probably adjust it. They'll just kind of scale everything a little bit better because the engines do sound a little bit high revving at times, and I don't think it's quite right. But yeah, anyway, bar right here, yeah, straight away you can see that I'm not using all the curbs, not the same curbs. Into the final turn here, normally you're straddling the curb. I wasn't actually doing that. I believe that was primarily because the default setup has got quite a forward brake bias, got a 63% brake bias. So I was just locking up if I was going on the curbs. I think if I moved the brake bias a little bit more rearward, I'd have been okay. But there's the upper bar right, and then straight away, we waffled most of the way through that one. But moving straight on now to Miami in the McLaren. And of course, we've got quite different colour profiles to last year's game. It makes the colours look quite a bit more realistic, which you'll see in a side-by-side video that I've got coming out very, very soon. Now, this first corner here is a little bit of a struggle on last year's game. This year's game is a little bit easier. Still not full confidence through there. I did take probably 5, maybe 10 minutes to do each of these hot laps. It wasn't a massive amount of time, but enough, so that it wasn't just the first impressions of me just, wandering about. These laps were all decent enough. A lot of understeer through here. Massive, massive understeer. Still touching the curb on the outside. Again, we are on default setups here, so it is more understeery than it will be once we've got the sweaty esports setups on the go. Coming down the straight now, open DRS here. You can hear the very high revs. Let's listen to it. So the engine just really sounds like it's screaming, doesn't it? I don't know, it just feels a little bit off to me. I think that's going to be a little bit off. And also, the smoke is a little bit weird in this build as well. You notice maybe sometimes if I lock up, the smoke just looks a little bit odd. Again, it is an early build. It's not a problem at all. We're still probably about a month away or so from release when this build got put out, so we've got a little bit of time. Yeah, there you go. Once again, absolutely full throttle in the third there. You can be so much more aggressive. Short shifting as well is less necessary than last year's game. That's due to a number of changes, which, as I said, will be detailed in my handling deep dive video. But short shifting is not as needed, not just because you've got more traction, but also because of other differences with torque curves and throttle mapping and all that kind of thing. There's quite a lot of changes that enable the track to be much easier. And there's track in Miami. Miami's not changed at all, along with Bahrain. Those tracks absolutely identical to last year's game, as far as I can tell. Moving on to Imola now then, in the Alfa Romeo here, coming down the long back straight. And of course, the on-screen display has also been subtly changed. They've gone a bit more towards the kind of official F1 styling, particularly the top left there. You can see we've got the F1 logo with the time trial next to it. So there's some subtle changes there. The minimap doesn't really change. Top right's also changed subtly. The bottom OSD, I guess, car info screen has also slightly changed, you'll notice. You've got the ERS charge that stays at 100% in time trial mode. Then above that, you get the DRS marker. And then other than that, really, you got all the same information. I don't think the information has changed at all. They've just kind of reworked it to be a bit more in line with what you see in real life. So going through here then, we see in there the higher downforce turns are easier. So this next corner is absolutely flat in 8th gear. It's not quite flat in F122. It can just about be. Once again, they're going full throttle in 4th gear over the curb again. Harder to do that in F122. But then you find the slower speed turns a bit slower. Through here though, we can actually take more curb. The car doesn't bounce off the curb so much. It's a lot smoother over the curbs. It makes not a massive difference, but it does make a little difference. And I'm wondering if it means we'll be taking more curb on this year's game. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Get a bit more info on that on the handling deep dive. And coming through the final turns here, there's definitely a little bit more understeer, a little bit less grip through here because they're a little bit too slow. So we're medium speed corner, and we're probably a little bit slower through there compared to last year's game. Again, we have got some side-by-sides coming very soon, so make sure you subscribe to both this channel and the main channel. Moving on now then to the Canadian Grand Prix. in the Aston Martin. Of course, it'll be much quicker on this year's game. We are running equal performance for all these laps, but once we're running realistic performance, of course, the performance of the Aston Martin will be significantly better than it was last year due to their real-life performance, of course. Take a look at curb again. Canada, another track that hasn't really changed at all. I haven't certainly noticed any changes. Of course, you always get branding changes and things like that year on year, but the actual track, the curbs, I don't know, width of everything, the off-track surfaces, all that is exactly the same as last year's game. So another track that hasn't changed. Next up, though, we are going to get a track that has changed, so look forward to that one. This is a corner that you can definitely take more curb. Previously, if you took that much curb, you could do it in F122, but it did unsettle the car a little bit. It didn't really like it. But this year's game, no problem at all. You can take those curbs very, very easily, so no worries. This is another corner right down to first gear there. Never used first gear really on F122, so that's quite a big difference there. Really getting it slowed down nicely, just because of that, less grip we've got in the slower speed corners, along with a bit of understeer with the default setup as well. Coming into the final turn now. Very high on the revs, braking super late. Now, interestingly, I do feel like there is a subtle change in that final turn. It feels a little bit narrower than it was, so there isn't any other changes I can notice, but I do wonder if it's a little bit changed in the final sector. We'll have a look at that when we go for the side-by-side with F122. Moving on now then to Silverstone. This is a track that has been completely changed on board with the Red Bull as well. Obviously, we saw this in the first impressions, but pretty much everything about this track has changed. I mean, all subtly, don't get me wrong. All the curbs are just very slightly changed. Like, it still very much feels like a very similar track to last time, but all subtly changed. Once again, get up to full throttle there in the third gear. You'll love to see it. Absolutely full throttle down the straight now as well, opening DRS. And, yeah, I mean, it's a weird one with Silverstone. I mean, this car on the right has changed. It's a little bit more raised now than it once was. Same with those sausage curbs at the inside. They're a little bit more raised. It's weird. You take all the same lines everywhere. It's not changed enough that everything's massively different, and the bumps feel quite similar. It's a subtle change in terms of the driving, but actually everything has changed. I mean, these curbs are a little bit smaller here, for example. The one on the inside in particular is a little bit smaller, I think. Absolutely flat through there, though. We were not flat through there on last year's game. No problem at all. Easy flat with increased downforce of this year's game, or increased high-speed grip, I should say. Flat through there, almost flat through that one as well. So definitely feeling really good for these high-speed turns. Nice and early up to 6th on the throttle very early, opening DRS once again. Coming down the back straight now. And again, it's a little bit quicker for this next turn. It took me a while to get up to speed with this one, actually. Braking super late, really chucking the car in because you've got that downforce and just about keeping it legal there with full throttle. Now, much less grip, though, for these turns. So we run a little bit deep, going all the way down to second gear there, just feeling the understeer, feeling the lack of grip. No sausage curb there on the outside this time, so you can take a little bit more curb there. And then there you go, 28.2 for that lap. 2 more tracks to go. Next up is Hungary. This is on board with the AlphaTauri now. Coming down these start-finish straight. So I'm going to set a PB, but we're going to improve that. These are all the best laps I did in my little recording session. Break a little bit early, probably earlier than I need to be honest. But again, it is a slow speed turn, so you do need to get it slowed down a little bit earlier than we did last time, because we'll be going a bit slower through the apex. Another track that I believe hasn't changed year on year. And yeah, coming through the first sector now. Nice nail on throttle once again. This is much easier flat than it was last year. I mean, it was flat last year, but you have to be a bit mindful of your line. You don't have to worry this year. This next turn as well, quite a bit quicker from here. You can take a bit more curb. The car reacts a little bit more nicely to the curb. It does still react to it a little bit. You can't just go over it as if it's completely flat, but you can take a bit more curb with the increased grip as well in high speed. Then you're doing okay there. Tiny lock up into here. But getting it stopped nicely. Again, the car handles these curbs so much nicer. Make quite a big difference on this circuit, actually. These curbs are sort of, I'm not going to call them steep, but they're, you know, they definitely affect the car, but they affect the car a little bit less on this year's game. It's just a little bit happier to be over the curbs. The tyres are just happier to be on them again. If you want to know why, do watch the handling deep dive. It feels like an advert video, this. It's not supposed to be. I'm just trying to maximise the content on F123 and make sure that we're getting the most out of what I've been given here by EA. Going through the penultimate turn here, getting through there very nicely. And yeah, again, not really too different. These sort of medium speed turns. I mean, there's a little bit more understeer maybe on this game compared to last year, but not a massive difference really. And coming to the line, move on to the final lap then. The final track that we've got, which is Brazil, in the Williams. Very quick down the straight here once again, getting it stopped nicely. Again, another circuit that hasn't changed, I believe, year on year. And going absolutely full throttle there, taking quite a big lift. Again, it was the understeer really that was causing me to lift there. It wasn't really the level of traction. It was more, you know, just trying to make sure that I stayed on track, just accidentally drifting off the track there as well. And getting it stopped nicely here down to 5th gear. I've had a bit more understeer through here, which again, I think is just, you know, inherent to the nature of the default setup. So be interested to see once the esports guys have got their hands on this game, we can get their esports setups on the go. Absolutely flat for here, no problem at all. Again, with this slightly more grip, but we've got our high-speed turns. Briefly full throttle there, 3rd gear, no road stall, no real wheel spin. You have to be a little bit cautious on the throttle when you're turning as well. If you're turning and trying to get on the throttle, you can't go full throttle in 3rd, as we saw in the first impressions. But if you've got the car straight, you can go full throttle on third this year. It's quite a big difference. Coming to the final turn now. For the final track, getting it all slowed down, avoiding the inside curve just like we did last year. Absolutely full throttle on the exit. Much easier to exit now. Previously, that was really tricky last year's game, actually, to get a good exit, because you also want to stay off the curb, because you don't want to get the reduced grip that you get on the curb. But on the run to the line then, and there we go, guys. That was all 7 laps, all 7 tracks for F1 23. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and got some relatively raw gameplay really of the game. As I said, I've got lots more content coming very, very soon. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and the main channel. This channel will feature just really gameplay. You know, I try to make this kind of channel just me playing a game, whereas the main channel, I try to make it a lot more detail oriented, a lot more analysis on that one. So if you want to see some F1 23 content, guys, make sure you subscribe to both channels. We've got lots of content coming over the next week or so on this game, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.